Okay, so hello everybody. We are Min and Clarabelle from UCLA Interaxon. Today we will be talking about sex, love, and the brain. Unlike your sex ed classes in school, this presentation will give you knowledge about why our behaviors in love is controlled by our lovely brain. So before we jump into anything PG-13, let's talk about differences between the female and the male brain. A male frontal cortex is not fully developed until he is 25, whereas the female prefrontal cortex tends to be developed by the time she is 18 to 20 years old. That's why we tend to say that girls mature a little bit faster than boys. Men, on the other hand, also have a bigger amygdala, which detects threats and fear. Being more sensitive to sensing threat is one of the reasons why people can say men are a little bit more protective. Females, on the other hand, have a bigger mirror neuron system, which is able to recognize other people's emotions and empathizes better than male. That's why females tend to be a little bit more empathetic and better listeners.
There are many reasons why people choose their partners and fall in love. It may be because of their beliefs, the hobbies they share, or how they present themselves. Everyone has a different thing they look for. Now let's take a second and think about what you think matters in a partner. Many scientific studies have shown the factors that determine our type. One of these factors is a differing immune system. You're attracted towards people that have a different immune system from you, specifically people with different MHC molecules from you. MHC molecules help our body to recognize and eliminate the harmful pathogens. The more different the two immune systems, the more likely offspring are to fight off a larger variety of pathogens. Physical features also play an important role. Waist to hip ratio is important for the successful birth of a baby, and studies have shown this precise ratio signifies highest fertility. For men, rugged features such as a muscular body or a lot of facial hair suggest a strong supply of testosterone in their blood. This means he's likely to have a strong immune system, so he's more likely to give his partner healthy children. Surprisingly, similar genes can also attract people to each other. Matthew Robinson and his colleagues at the University of Queensland in Brisbane studied a person's genetic markers for traits such as height and body mass index to predict the height and BMI of their partner. They found a statistical correlation between people's genetic markers for height and the actual height of their partners. So if someone's genetic traits suggest that they're tall, then their partner was likely to be tall. A similar trend was also found with BMI. Lastly, and certainly not least, finances can affect your type. In an 18 characteristic value test, women consistently rated financial resources as the most valuable 100% more than males. This data came to the conclusion that finances are related 2 times as important to females than to males, so suggesting that they prioritize security and stability for themselves and their children.
The brain of a person in love is awfully similar to that of a person on cocaine. Cocaine acts on the pleasure center of the brain by lowering the pleasure threshold, which makes it easier for you to feel good. Things can trigger the pleasure center easier, so not only you'll fall in love with the person, but you will also fall in love with the world around you. Interestingly, nearby pain centers also fire less, so you less get bothered by things. Things are great when you are in love. But what is actually happening in your brain when you're in love? Well, hormones. And these hormones, specifically right here, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And we are going to be discussing all of them. So the first one that we're going to discuss is dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, which is a chemical signal of the brain. It is released in the substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area of the brain, which is a part of your brain's reward system. Dopamine is released after any pleasurable action, such as eating or sex, and it triggers a feeling of pleasure, motivation, and reward. Similar effects can also be seen in people using cocaine because it triggers the same pleasure center in the brain. The brain releases it to reward you for that action.
Therefore, it is a natural motivation mechanism in your brain. If this reward system can be triggered when studying, it can actually makes you study easier and even better. That's why some people say that they study better when they're in a relationship. So go find somebody to love and then study well, kids.
Next up is serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter responsible for mood and flexibility. Love decreases brain levels of serotonin, which means you can get stuck on ideas. You become obsessed. There's nothing wrong with being obsessed with your partner, right? What about when they suddenly dump you? That's when the short supply of serotonin makes you vulnerable to depression. In extreme cases, the serotonin shortage can trigger obsessive behaviors, such as exhibiting extreme jealousy or even stalking. What do we do on the night of a breakup? Eat ice cream. Don't worry though, consuming carbs and exercising helps you get these serotonin levels back up, making sure you feel better in no time.
Oxytocin is a melatonin hormone. Oxytocin is secreted by the hypothalamus and then it goes into the bloodstream and affects peripheral organs. It is also known as the cuddle hormone, um, and it reinforces bonding and attachment in mammals, and it is associated with touch. In a 2003 study, both humans and dog oxytocin level in the blood rose after 5 to 24 minutes of a petting session. Aww. It also helps a lot in maternal bonding. So anything with birth, bonding with baby, and milk production. Anyway, that is it with hormones. Let's talk about kissing. Kissing is a complex behavior that requires a significant muscular coordination involving a total of 34 facial muscles and 112 postural muscles. That's a lot. In the case of the French kiss, the tongue is also an important component. Lips may also have nerve endings, which makes them very sensitive to touch and bite. Kissing stimulates the production of hormones responsible for a good mood, like oxytocin, which releases the feeling of love and strengthens the bond with the partner, and dopamine, which stimulates the pleasure center of the brain. It also helps releases endorphins, which is responsible for the feeling of happiness. Regular kissing can also protect you against stress and depression. Affection in general has a stress reducing effect, resulting in a reduction of perceived stress, an increase in relationship satisfaction, and lowering your cholesterol level.
Now let's watch this video and learn 6 juicy facts about kissing.
Give us a thumbs up if you used to be scared of cooties as a kid. I know I was. But things change the older we get. We grow curious about others, and sometimes when love is in the air, it leads to kissing. Who knew that something that seemed so gross before could become heart-stopping and butterfly-inducing? Here are 6 juicy facts about kissing. 1. You learned to kiss before you were even born. Sounds weird, right? But according to a German researcher, he discovered that 2/3 of the hundreds of couples he observed tilted their heads to the right. He theorizes that this instinct stems from the time we were in the womb, where we naturally tilt our heads in the same direction. 2. Kissing is actually good for you. Except when you're sick, of course. But seriously, the list of kissing benefits seems endless. As a natural face workout, it can help you burn between 2 to 26 calories per minute, prevents cavities from developing thanks to saliva production, and reduces your stress and anxiety levels. We also want to point out that your lips are 100 times more sensitive than your fingertips. So the more you kiss, the more your endorphins are released, making you feel happier. Maybe romance really does heal. 3. You can make a career out of kissing. It's called philematology, and it's the scientific study of kissing. Experts say it mainly originated from the Western world, where people are more open to displaying public affection. But as the practice grew and people were curious to learn more about it, philematology eventually spread to places like Japan and Africa too. Who says kissing only had to be reserved for love when you can make a living out of it? 4. We kissed long before we knew how to read or write. You see it at the end of personalized cards and letters all the time. Love always. XOXO. But these letters have a history behind them. Historians discovered that back in the Middle Ages, when many people couldn't read or write, they would mark X as their signature and kiss the document to show their sincerity. 5. People remember their first kiss more vividly than the first time they have sex. It's funny how much Hollywood advertises sex when a first kiss holds more value. After studying 500 participants, psychologist John Bohannon from Butler University found that most of them recalled up to 90% of their first romantic kiss, which was far more than what they could remember about their first sexual encounter. 6. We kiss to test the waters. Ever wonder why we kiss? It turns out we kiss to find a good mate. In journalist Cheryl Kirschenbaum's book, The Science of Kissing, What Our Lips Are Telling Us, she mentions that we learn whether someone is a good match for us from the way they kiss us, ranging from their commitment level to genetic compatibility. Did these facts make you look at kissing differently? Also, have you seen our video on 5 differences between having a crush and falling in love?
Now let's talk about sex, everyone. There are many things going on in your brain and body during sex. Does anyone know what testosterone is? Well, it is the main hormone that functions during puberty for men, giving them features like beards, chest hair, and other traits. It is also the main hormone that gives males a sex drive. Teenage boys have high sex drives because the level of testosterone in their body has risen significantly. Let's use the analogy of the amount of water being equivalent to the level of testosterone. Before puberty, it would be like having a couple sips of water a day. During puberty, now it's like drinking a couple gallons of water a day. That's about a 20-fold increase. Now you may be wondering, how come sex drives in teenagers is so high, but in adulthood, the sex drive is controlled? A teenager's brain doesn't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that is involved in judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, forethought, and learning from mistakes. And it won't be fully developed until he's 25. Because of this, he may make more impulsive decisions based on his sex drive. During arousal and the eventual plateau, neurotransmitters are at play. In females, they are released to help relax the muscles and make the walls of the vagina, making it longer and wider. Men and women have similar experiences when it comes to orgasm. Their reward systems are triggered and dopamine is released. Areas of the cerebellum become activated while significant parts of your cortex completely shut down. At the same time, oxytocin is released, which makes you very likely to cuddle up after sex. The most important thing to remember is to practice safe sex, everyone. One of the many consequences that come with failing to do so is pregnancy. There are many changes that come with pregnancy. When a woman becomes pregnant, she emits pheromones that will waft into her mate's nostrils. Her pheromones will also cause his testosterone production to drop by 30%. What effects on the relationship do you think this has? Well, a decrease in testosterone levels will decrease his sex drive and make him less likely to cheat. It will also change his perception, increasing his ability to hear baby cry, something many men can't do very well before their wives are pregnant.
Well, which do you think has a more powerful effect on your brain, sex or love? The answer is love. Romantic love is evidently stronger than sex drive, and because when one's sexual overtures are rejected, people do not kill themselves over someone else. Instead, abandoned lovers sometimes stalk, commit suicide or homicide, or fall into a clinical depression. When in love, the nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex also became active, which are associated with craving and addiction, specifically cocaine addiction. Have you ever heard of stories of old couples who have been together for 50 years plus or so? And when one of them dies, sometimes the other one will die within a couple of weeks or months. Another fun fact is that a traumatic breakup or death of a loved one can unleash a flood of stress hormones, which can stun the heart and causing sudden and life-threatening heart spasm in otherwise very, very healthy people. Okay, now let's watch this amazing song about neuroscience of love as a summary for everything that we've studied today.
Do, 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 do. When you looked in my direction, I thought my heart might explode. My heart was racing and I thought it might explode. Because my sympathetic nervous system caused norepinephrine to stimulate my sinoatrial node. When you looked in my direction, when you first looked into my eyes, when you looked into my eyes, my stress response diverted blood flow from my stomach and intestines, and it felt like butterflies. I knew that I wanted to marry ya, as my ventral tegmental area sent signals to my nucleus accumbens. And oh my lord, the anticipation of reward, that dopamine starts pumping. I know oxytocin is the potion of devotion. Give me that dose of dopamine. Hold the serotonin still going, growing stronger all the time. I love you, and I'm never gonna change my mind. When you first smiled at me, I did foolish things. Really stupid things. Because my judgment was impaired by a reduction in activity in my amygdala and the frontal cortex of my brain. When you first smiled at me, I began to fall. One smile and I began to fall. And so did my serotonin levels, producing anxiety. I couldn't eat or sleep at all. Then a year or two went by with serotonin on the rise, till I was feeling comfortable and calm. Now every single time we touch, I get that oxytocin rush. Our bond has never been so strong. I know oxytocin is the potion of devotion. Dial back that dopamine. Here comes serotonin, still going, growing stronger all the time. I love you, and I'm never gonna change my mind.
Lady, we've been together for a while now, and things are starting to mellow out. But that's okay, because we can get those sparks of dopamine back by experiencing new things together.
Oxytocin is the potion of devotion. A little bit of dopamine, a lot of serotonin, still going, growing stronger all the time. I love you, and I'm never gonna change my, never gonna change my, never gonna change my mind.
Okay, what an amazing song. What else did you guys learn from the video that wasn't mentioned in the present today? And there was a hormone that was named besides the three mentioned in the presentation. Can anyone name the hormone and its function? A little bit of hint, it starts with an N. It is norepinephrine. It is a hormone that is released from the adrenal gland in response to stress and danger. In the song, it is released because the person was nervous when they first saw their crush. So norepinephrine was released and then took effect on their heart, which makes it beat faster.
Thank you all for tuning in. If you're interested in learning more about neuroscience, be sure to check out our YouTube channel at UCLA Interacts On. Bye, guys.